for the 26th of April. I'd like to now declare the meeting open. Do we have any requests for leave of absence or apologies? No? Okay. So what we'll do this morning is that I'd like to first of all invite Pastor Lethan. Thank you, Lethan. Welcome to come up to the lectern and deliver the morning prayers. Then we'll have Councillor Duff recognise our traditional owners before we go to Councillor Potter to speak about the significance of Denim Day today. So, welcome, Lethan.
Thank you, Mayor. I always get confused with pressing this button, so it's. I think I got it right now, so we should be all good. Well, good morning, everybody, and I hope you're having a great day so far. I was listening a little bit about the day yesterday. All of you would have had, no doubt, busy around the area representing at our Anzac Days, and I understand that a little bit. Last week I went to Ipswich, Toowoomba and Brisbane all on separate days, so it's I understand what travel's like and how that can drain you so much a little bit, but just wanted to share something real quick before I pray for you today. Last week I actually went down to Brisbane to witness the retirement of one of my colleagues, and this was not just a colleague, he was actually the pastor who was the supervisor of my internship. And what that means is that when you are a young pastor and you come into our branch of the denomination of Christianity that we're part of, you have to sit or shadow a more experienced pastor for 3 or 4 years before you're made it and you're allowed to go out. So before I came out here to the God's country, South Burnett, I had to sit underneath his supervision, and he retired. So I went down to honour him, and of course they gave him a citation and honoured him in their special way. And he also responded in just with like a thank you and told his story, how he came into the ministry. And it was quite funny because if you have no formal education to become a minister, you have to take an entry exam to be able to study. And he failed the first entry exam. And in those days, I think it was the late 80s, you actually had to wait 2 years before you're actually allowed to sit it again. So he waited 2 years, he took the test again, and he failed the test again. And so he waited another 2 years, and he took the test a third time, and he failed again. And you think, oh, why would you pursue this if you keep failing? So he called up the seminary or the presbytery to sort of, figure out what's going on, and they eventually let him in, and everything was fine, and now he could supervise me. So don't worry, I'm still qualified, even though my supervisor failed a few times. But I got in straight away. So not a humble brag by any means, but it reminded me of a Bible verse from Proverbs 24, chapter 16, actually, where it says, though the righteous person may fall 7 times, he will rise again. And I thought that's so special because, you know what, we may fail many times in our life. We may be like my supervisor who took 3 times to get into studying the ministry. But it's not our failures that define us. It's the fact that we can get up again and continue to go on that really should define who we are. And so that's my encouragement for you today, is that we should be defined by how we get up, not by how we fall. And I'd love to pray for you, as you no doubt have many things to talk about today. Let me pray for you. Heavenly Father, today I just want to pray a special blessing over every single person in this room, the councillors and the council staff. And Lord, they have many important decisions to make for our region, no doubt, today. And Lord, I just pray that your Spirit will be here to guide and to bless and to inspire. And I pray that there will just be a spirit of unity within this room today, and that the decisions that are made will be the best ones for our region, so we can see our region continue to prosper and continue to go from strength to strength. We thank you, Lord, for all these things. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Lethan. Wonderful to have you with you. And we understand you'll have a busy day, so we'll understand you'll leave when you need to. But yeah, have a wonderful day. God bless. Thank you. Councillor Duff.
Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge country and the land where we meet this morning, the Wakwaka land, and acknowledge the elders, both past, present and emerging. Thank you. Thank
you, Councillor. I'd like to get Councillor Potter to speak about the significance of this day. Thank you, Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So today is Denim Day. Denim Day started in 1998 when the Italian Supreme Court decision overturned a rape conviction because the victim wore tight jeans. And this led to a movement of women wearing jeans in solidarity with the victim. So today is to raise awareness and protest against sexual violence and victim blaming. And only together can we end the rape culture in our community. So please, wear denim today.
Oh, I would think that they would be aware of it.
Take your photos
But probably
and
going to know either way because
so please take your photos and upload them to the Centrecare South Burnett email address, and they will upload your South Burnett, the photos to the South Burnett
anyway that have been done
Facebook page.
That would be between what the two pubs were going to pay compared to others.
Well, Kerry, you might just need to mute. Pete's got it. Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Potter. Beautifully delivered, and of course, it's a very important day for everybody. Councillors, we'll now move on to item 5, disclosure of any conflicts of interest in relation to today's agenda. No? Of course, raise them as we move through if you feel the need to. We don't have any deputations today, Council, so we'll move on to 7.1. Previous minutes can be found at 7 on the agenda. It's recommended the minutes of the council meeting held on the 29th of March 2023 be received and the recommendations therein adopted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Henson, thank you. Any speakers? To the vote, those in favour, carried unanimously, thank you all. 9.1, business outstanding table for ordinary meetings of council at 44. Recommendation is that the business outstanding table for the ordinary council meeting be received for information. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconder. Councillor Duff, thank you. Speakers? Go straight to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10.1, adoption of the Council's acceptable request guidelines policy, statutory 004 at 70 on the agenda. And we'll go straight to the recommendation from the committee, which is that the South Burnett Regional Council acceptable request guidelines policy, statutory 004, be adopted as amended. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Henson. Speakers? No? We'll go straight to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10.2, adoption of Council's Defence Service Policy, statutory 013 at 79. Recommendation from the committee meeting is that the South Burnett Regional Council Defence Service Policy, statutory 013, be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter. You're active today, Councillor Potter. You need to be, don't you? Seconded, Councillor Erkins. Thank you both. Speakers, to the vote. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10.3, adoption of Council's Workplace Health and Safety Policy, statutory 015 at 84. Committee has recommended that South Burnett Regional Council Workplace Health and Safety Policy, statutory 015, be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover? Councillor Henson, seconder. Councillor Erkins. Speakers? To the vote, those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10.4, adoption of Council's Code of Competitive Neutrality Complaints Policy. That's at 88, whereby it has been recommended by the committee that the South Burnett Regional Council Code of Competitive Neutrality Complaints Policy, statutory 006, be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Erkins. Speakers? To the vote, those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, 10.5, adoption of Council's Unreasonable Customer Conduct Policy can be found at 93, whereby from the committee it has been recommended that the South Burnett Regional Council Unreasonable Customer Conduct Policy, Strategic 033, be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover? Councillor Erkins, second Councillor Henson. Speakers? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm not supporting this policy. I spoke at length at the committee meeting about my reasons why I think that we still need a lot more work in the space of getting back to customers, and I'm not prepared to support this until we get our customer service process happening better. Sometimes customers are waiting, like I've had examples of 3 months to get responses, so I'm against supporting this policy at this time. Thank you.
Further speakers? Okay, anything to close, Councillor Erkins? Good, thank you, Councillor. Okay, let's go to the vote. Those in favour? Okay, Councillors Shoemaker, Erkins, Jones, Potter and Henson. Thank you, Kimberley. Those against? Councillors Duff and Otto. The motion has been carried. Okay, 10.6, adoption of Council's revenue policy for 23-24 can be found at 100, and the recommendation from the committee is that the South Burnett Regional Council revenue policy 23-24 statutory 005 be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Seconder? Councillor Erkins, thank you. Speakers? To the vote, those in favour? Carried unanimously, thank you all. 10.7, Council's investment policy for 23-24 at 106. Recommendation from the committee is that the South Burnett Regional Council investment policy 23-24 statutory 009 be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover? Councillor Henson, seconded Councillor Duff. Speakers? To the vote, those in favour? Carried unanimously, thank you all. 10.8, Annual Operational Plan 22-23 Implementation Progress Report for the period ending 31 March 2023 can be found at 113. Recommendation is that South Burnett Regional Council Annual Operational Plan 22-23 Implementation Progress Report for the period 1 July 22 to 31 March 23 be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconded Councillor Potter. Any speakers? Straight to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10.9, confirming Council's attendance at the LGAQ Conference 23 and the LGAQ Bush Councils Conventions 23 and LGAQ Disaster Management Conference 2023, 169. Okay, committee recommendation to Council is that Councillor Potter attend the LGAQ Queensland Disaster Management Conference 2023, that Councillors Potter, Erkins, Henson, Jones, Shoemaker and Otto attend the LGAQ Biennial Bush Councils Convention 2023, and that Mayor Otto and Councillor Jones attend the LGAQ Annual Conference 2023 as delegates, and Councillor Erkins as the reserve, and the following as observers: Councillor Shoemaker, Councillor Henson and Councillor Potter. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter has moved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Erkins. Any speakers? No? Okay. My only concern, Councillor, is the number of us that are going to the Bush and the LGAQ annual conference. Mr. Acting CEO or General Manager Jarvis, is this already all factored into the fee that we pay to the LGAQ per annum? Because I know we pay about $130,000 a year, I think, from memory, when we saw last week's budget. Are all costs covered by that for all the councillors to attend, or is this going to incur an additional cost on our operational budget?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'd have to take that on notice. I agree with you, the $130,000, the annual budget that we pay, it's actually out of executive services, so it's from the CEO's department, but from memory, I think it included two delegates But I think anything in excess of that, I think we have to pay. But like I said, I can certainly bring that information back to you there. But that's generally what it generalised, was that it included the 2 delegates to the LGAQ conference.
So under this recommendation, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us going to Bush Council, and Councillor Jones and I going as delegates. And then we've got, how many going in total there under item 3, Mr Actor CEO? So there's 4 of us going there.
Sorry, through you, Mr Mayor, I believe
just-
it's yourself and Councillor Jones as the delegates, and then you've got Councillor Erkins, Councillor Shoemaker, Councillor Henson and Councillor Potter attending as either a reserve or an extra, so they'll give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There'll be 6 of you, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. I must apologise to council. I missed that committee meeting, but so sorry, we've got 6 going to Bush, and how many did we say? 6 going to LGAQ conference. So there's an extra, there's cost for 4 additional representatives to attend that'll be coming out of our operational budget. In light of our deficit and our need to cut costs, I'm just wondering, councillor, would you be prepared to reconsider that? I'm open-minded as to what we do here, but just keen to hear thoughts. Any speakers? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yeah, certainly, Mr Mayor, by all means. It is a wonderful learning opportunity for councillors, and probably the only professional development opportunity that councillors actually get. And we do, in my understanding of making the decision, have a budget allocation for each councillor. How you choose to use it is at your own discretion. I'm happy to remove my name from the Bush Council's attendance and just attend the LGAQ annual conference, you know, and certainly recognise that, yeah, these are difficult times. So by all means, happy to choose a conference if that's what you're implying we should do.
Yeah, probably just putting it open for discussion, I suppose, as to what your thoughts are. I'm not sure what it costs for attendance, but Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I've been one that certainly strongly suggested that this opportunity is always given to every councillor. As Councillor Shoemaker said, it's probably one of our only opportunities for professional development. And I always thought that we had, as councillors, allocated a certain amount of money per year for professional development. I may be wrong and may well have been taken out in the last couple of years, but I always thought we had it in the budget for a certain amount of money for each individual councillor to be allocated for professional. But anyway, I'll give that as a question on notice. Happy to have information given back. But I will say that these 2 opportunities, and it's not, I don't believe that it's a overly bearing amount of money. I know we're talking maybe a couple of $1,000 per councillor. And yes, in these tough times, but I tell you what, as an individual councillor, for the opportunity you get to go to these conferences, as particularly the Bush Council, where you meet all those Western councils that have the same issues as us, I think it's a great opportunity for people like us to go and do some networking and all that. And that LGAQ conference, for the people that have had the opportunity to experience that, I think it is one hell of an opportunity as a councillor to grow their experience as far as what they need to do and how other people operate across the state of Queensland. So I personally would like to see that opportunity left open for all councillors to attend that. And I understand where you're coming from, Mr Mayor, and the point that every dollar counts, but as councillors, we need the experience to make the tough decisions that we have to make.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, sorry, we'll go to Councillor Erkins.
I think Councillor
Councillor Henson, next. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, through you. Yeah, I've stood in this chamber for 3 years and said the most beneficial thing I've been to as a councillor has certainly been the Bush Council Convention and the LGAQ conference each year. And I know, Councillor Erkins, that previously you would have probably had doubts on that, but you went to the one last year, and correct me if I'm wrong, that would have been one of your most exciting learning experiences, not just as a councillor, but across the board, because the people in the public out there, if they think that it's costing money, it's one of the most valuable things, and as Councillor Jones has alluded to, and through you, Mr Mayor, the opportunity to be able to say that to me, and I'm sure our other councillors here, and Councillor Duffy, you've been councillor a long time, and I'm sure you've gone to many of them, that every year poses something different in conversation you have. In the bush councils, you get an opportunity to talk to some 30, I believe 36 or 8 odd councils that are in that bush council region. And then when we go to the LGAQ one, there's some 76 or 77 other councils there, or the entire councils across the state. And we don't get that opportunity, and we don't go to too much of that style of thing. To me, it's been, and I repeat it, one of the most, if not the most valuable things a councillor can attend. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Erkins.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I did find it extremely beneficial. I found the ideas that I picked up from other councillors in other areas, and I do know that 2 of these are actually driving ones, and I know we went out, Councillor Duff and I went out up to Barcaldine last year. Our travel didn't cost council anything. We paid for our own fuel going up there, which I would intend to do to both the Bush Council and the State Council that's in Gladstone. So, I believe it's money well invested, because I do believe there are lots of opportunities. I know that I picked up, especially having the tourism portfolio and going out to Barcaldine, it was extremely helpful to me to see the things that towns similar size to many that we have in our region, and see the different things that they had done to attract tourists, to have tourists stopping. That was a very good experience. Also, when we went to the state one, being there for the debate, listening to the debate, I know that Councillor Shoemaker was one of our delegates up there, and she debated very well for things that as councils we need to draw attention. We hear all the time speaking of how government, state government and federal government, when we're not getting enough money, this is our opportunity to be there lobbying for that money. That's what we need to be doing. Every single council meeting, Mr. Mayor, I hear you saying that we need that extra money. I think this is a very small investment into being able to lobby and hopefully get some more of that money back to our region and other smaller regions like ours. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, there are other councils that the whole council jump on a bus and drive to these conferences. We don't do that. We drive up separately or however we go. But, the people we meet at these conferences, what we learn at these conferences is invaluable. We do not get this anywhere else within our work. Thank you.
Okay, any further speakers? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have over the years, I know that, and Deputy Mayor Jones would know this, that we shared it around. So we always sent different councillors, and that was the idea of getting that experience. But it wasn't about everyone going every time. And I'm just concerned about the precedent we're setting here and the cost to the operational budget, because it is expensive to go to those conferences, the motel accommodation and the whole even just the participation fees. And I'm just concerned, and I thought that was what we did, was just share it around. And I know that the reason why I went last time was because I had a role to play, and I know that Councillor Erkins did as well, as because she was speaking about the housing and homeless crisis. So, and I spoke about the Proston shop experience in the Butch Linton Award. But yeah, so I'm just thinking maybe we should be a little bit more conservative and just share it around more rather than everyone going. That's just my thoughts.
Thank you, Councillor. We did have a question around the allowance for professional development. Mr Acting CEO has got the answer for us. Go to you. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, thank you. Just had it sent through to me. I believe just for professional developments for councillors, councillors undertaking core industry-specific training will have their costs met by council. Training that does not fall within either list will have the costs met by council using the councillor's discretionary training budget that is fund until that fund is exhausted. So if a councillor is attending a conference, the discretionary training budget for the mayor is $6,900 per annum. For a councillor, it is set at $3,120. The budget includes payment for costs associated with training, example, travel and accommodation. The training must be approved in advance and the content must be relevant to the duties of a councillor. Where the training involves attendance at a conference, a councillor must present a report to the ordinary meeting within 3 months of their attendance. So the only query I would have on that one, Mr Mayor, that if you are a delegate, as in with voting rights, whether that's a representation of, that might be a question for Mark, whether that comes out of your training allowance as a LGAQ delegate, given you're representing council as a voting member. But that would be one we probably just clarify with Mark on his return. But the way that reads in the policy is that the councillors can attend training, voluntary, at their discretion, provided it's within their budget.
Thank you very much, Mr Acting CEO. General Manager Jarvis, go to you and then back to Councillor Shoemaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor, just a little bit of an update on the budget there. And I just, General Manager O'May just advised me that these two conferences you're speaking about are in next financial year as well. So that would have to be included in this budget. But there is a budget allocation of 25,620 budgeted for professional development for councillors in this financial year. And the professional development budget is that there's $3,120 per councillor and $6,900 for the mayor allocated. The Bush Conference, the full registration is $990 per delegate or observer, or $1,600 corporate registration. And there's also $800 accommodation included with that $990 registration. And I'm just finding now about the LGAQ registration for observers. Like I said, the two delegates are covered by our annual our annual fee, but the observers, they're additional. So once I get that information, I'll let you know, Mr Mayor.
Yeah. Thank you, General Manager Jarvis. So the $1,600 corporate registration for the Bush Council, does that cover all delegates, or do we have to pay the $990 each? Sorry.
There's limited information there, Mr Mayor. It was just that it is per delegate, or you have, they're the corporate, no? Here we go.
Yeah, through Mr Mayor. No, I think it would be per delegate. The corporate registration would be for a Mead Perry, a consultant type group, where it'd be, I would believe. Normally the delegates would be the council delegate. Yeah.
I see.
Thank you, General Managers. Okay. All right, Councillor Shoemaker.
Mr Mayor, I was just thinking, I think last year and maybe even the year before, I attended for you in your absence. You were unable to attend and you'd actually offered that opportunity to the team. You were looking for a delegate to fill that space. I just couldn't remember how many conferences I'd actually attended in your absence for you. And, you know, just thinking about that, I hadn't really made a lot of conscious decisions to attend the conference. This year, look, Kimberly, I'd just like to, I guess, if with the leave of the mover and seconder, certainly, you know, for me to leave my family and organise a babysitter to actually take my children to school costs me hundreds of dollars every conference. I also have paid for all of my own meals and fuel. And yeah, look, I'm happy to remove my name from the Bush Council's conference. To be honest, that would actually relieve some family pressure for me, being that, you know, I don't have family to take my kids to school, so I actually pay a babysitter when I leave. And, you know, I'm happy. I really do want to attend the LGAQ annual conference. So yeah, personally, if that helps, just, I guess, stretch our budget a little bit further, I'm happy to do that. And yeah, I know I've attended many conferences over the last couple of years and learned a lot from them and advocated strongly for this council on the key priorities of our advocacy plans, our corporate plan and our operational plan. And, you know, I think we've come back and we've actually gotten some good outcomes from that advocacy, been involved in things like the resources councils. You know, that invitation for our council to be part of that resources council wouldn't have happened if we hadn't have actually been at the table for the last couple of years advocating for, certainly I've been advocating for resources councils to have a stronger position in the jobs and energy plan. Mr Mayor, by all means, I certainly recognise it's time the challenges we've got ahead. And yeah, I just think I'm by all means happy to remove my name from the Bush Council's convention, which frees up some budget to stretch it a little bit further. I really do think it's important we as councillors, this is, as Pastor Lathan reflected on this morning, you know, he had to sit an exam to become a pastor. If you want to become a councillor, it's a couple of modules on a workshop online. You know, there's very little training or opportunity, and it is a very difficult job. And I think we really do need to take opportunities like these to grow, to learn, if we are to stand united and face the challenges that we've got ahead of us. So that's my thoughts on this, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Could I just confirm, Mr Acting CEO, that the just a question, the Bush Councils, the month that I believe the LGAQ conference is in October. When is the Bush one? Is it June or July? It's July and October. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay. Mover and seconder, Councillor Potter and Erkins, to remove Councillor Shoemaker from the Bush Council's convention. Do you have any objection to Kimberley taking that out? Taking Councillor Shoemaker's name off, sorry, meant to say. No objection to that? Okay, so the mover and seconder have consented. General Manager Jarvis.
Beg your pardon, Mr. Mayor. Just the update now for the LGAQ registration for your information. The registration per head for observers is $1,790 total. The registration is $1,540. The gala dinner is $175 and the welcome dinner is $75. So that's a total of $1,790. And the accommodation averages out at $4,780 for the 4 nights. Dean, so that's about $6,570 per observer to go to the LGAQ conferences.
So $6,500 per person to the LGAQ. I think you said $990 for the Bush.
That's beg your pardon, Mr. Mayor. That's
we'll stay with
five. So it's 5 nines. So it's around $1,000 per person for accommodation if you divide that by 5. So that's all up $2,790 per observer.
We could basically round that to say about $2,800 per person for the LGAQ annual conference and about $1,000 per person for the Bush. $990,000 for the Bush. Okay, so $1,000 and $2,800. Okay, anything further from you, Mr. Acting CEO, on this? No, I don't want to drag this on, and we've got plenty on the agenda, but my conscience is troubling me here, colleagues. This is going to be in next year's budget. Please, I say it with all due respect. We've got a $5.1 million deficit, and I know this is only a budget of $25,000 for PD for the year for the councillors. I guess my concerns are, having listened to the discussion this morning, is that, number one, from an advocacy point of view, I don't know if we need 4 or 5 or 6 people there to advocate. I think that advocacy can be done by 2 people, possibly. 2 councillors, I think, can do the advocacy piece. And that's normally what happens at the conference when it comes to delegates, 2 delegates doing that. Similarly with the Bush Council, I would have hoped that two councillors could represent us in advocating the things that we collectively see as important for our region. So I don't know that the advocacy piece is really about a numbers game. It's more about having representatives at the table who are clear about what we want them to advocate for. My concern about the professional development part, and again I say this completely respectfully because I know we don't get much for PD at all in this role, but my concern there is that this is in next year's budget and that the election's coming up in March. And please, I say this, I don't know who's running or who's not running. I'm not making any assertions. Again, just being respectful. So the LGAQ conference, for example, is only 6 months out from the election. So I'm just wondering, in our final 6 months of our term, is professional development as important as it would be perhaps early in our term? We're not sure who's going to be here after March next year. So I suppose just wanting to put that perspective on it, not personally for anybody, but just from a corporate investment point of view for the council. Is it worth council investing in our PD if it may be that that one or some or more of us may not actually be here to provide a return on that investment? So that's probably my views, but we'll allow Councillor Erkin's opportunity just to speak once more, and then we might go to Councillor Potter to close if there's no more speakers. So just a quick one, Councillor Erkins, if you could. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I think it's each individual councillors will make the decision on whether they're going to stand again. And I think the education that you get through these programs, I feel definitely the two that I have attended definitely helped me understand better the workings of council, our role, what we can and can't do. I feel that we're here arguing or debating this figures when I see a lot of other things that we're going to be spending money on that really I can't see any benefit to our community. This I see, if we come back with better councillors, better equipped to make decisions, I think that can only be a bonus and only a benefit to our community. As I said, I see many things here that are debated on and passed that I can't see a big benefit to our community on. And I do know that since I've been here, I note that you haven't been to any of those conferences since I've been here, but I personally think that they have definitely assisted me in my role, have a better understanding of what is achievable by a small group of people in a small region with a difficult budget to manage. So I am definitely in favour of councillors attending it. I can only see that it benefits our region.
Okay. Yeah, look, just to respond, the only reason I did go for obviously personal reasons, I couldn't get there, but I certainly had every faith and confidence in my colleagues to represent our council well. I don't think it's always necessary that I have to be there. We've got very experienced and capable councillors. But obviously, you know, those high-level discussions with ministers, it is desirable that the mayor and deputy mayor are involved. Hearing what you say, though, I mean, you know, we're only going to have 2 months of decisions to make, councillor. We'll come back from the conference in October. We'll have no November and December. We go into caretaker on the 1st of January. And I suppose I shouldn't have talked about who stands. It's about who gets elected, you know. So we're not sure who's going to be back here. Is it worth the investment of, you know, $2,800 per person to send, what are we sending, 5 or 6 of us off to Gladstone when we're going to come back and only have 2 more months to serve before we go into caretaker? For me, my conscience would tell me that's maybe not a good investment for our council from a professional development point of view. I think if we had a staff member that we knew was leaving in 2 months' time, would we send them off to a $3,000 course? I think we probably wouldn't. So look, for me, I'm probably still not comfortable, but look, I'll accept the will of the meeting. So look, Councillor Potter to close, and then we'll go to the vote perhaps. Thank you, Councillor Potter.
Thank you. Look, it may only be 6 months out from the election, but we still have a lot of learnings to do within that time. We've still got budgets that we start working on, even though we're in caretaker mode. We do still start that work. We still have community meetings. We're still talking to ministers with regards to what we can do to better our own communities. So I do believe that these are really important for us. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, let's go to the vote. Those in favour? Councillor Shoemaker, Councillor Erkins, Councillor Jones, Potter and Henson. Got those, Kimberley? And those against? Councillor Duff and Councillor Otto. The motion has been carried 5 votes to 2. Thank you all. Okay, so we're going fairly well. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, I'm a bit perplexed after that conversation and then agreeing and hearing, like, it's making me nervous that here we are, we've moved that motion, but I sense there's a bit of hesitation around the table in respect to yourself, Mr. Mayor, wanting to go. Are we now that that's gone through, are we all committed to that? Or is there going to be change moving closer to the actual dates? Like,
Are you asking me if I'm going to bail?
well, not just you, but there's other conversations around. Look, I just don't know, yeah. Like, are we going to, you know what I mean? Like,
Look, it's a resolution of council, and failing ill health or a family issue, I would be doing the responsible thing in accordance with the direction of council and attending both. So yeah, I certainly won't be bailing on my responsibilities to attend. If that's the if that's the direction of my colleagues, I don't believe anyone else is intending to bail. But of course, always please understand that we all have families and we all have health issues from time to time that come up. So sometimes one has to withdraw from these things. But yeah, I would certainly be looking to honour the resolution. You don't always win in the chamber, but you should. Well, if there's a direction to go and do something, a direction of the chamber, well, I think the responsible thing would be to follow that. So, absolutely, yeah. Everyone comfortable with that? Comfortable to move on? Yeah. I mean, look, I've got to say, I'm not comfortable with spending that amount of money. I'm not supportive of it, but I will honour the decision of council.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to say, in the previous conventions we've gone to, and you haven't been able to attend, and fully appreciate the reasons why, but we get asked, because I think every other mayor and councillor is in those there, and we get asked that where is our mayor, but I would genuinely like to see you attend, Mr Mayor, if all possible.
And please, I've only not attended previously. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was only because of health or family issues. It was the only reason I didn't attend. Otherwise, direction of councillors to attend, I'll attend. Yeah, absolutely. Councillor Erkins, we need to move on though, Council. We've dealt with the matter.
You did make mention, but that if someone wasn't going to be standing for election at the next, if they had made their decision not to stand, I would think that they would then, if they had no intentions of standing, well then if they decided that they weren't going to go to the, so I fully understand that, but if councillors are intending to stand and they wish to do that as part of their development to councillors, well then they would go, but if they're not intending to stand, well, I would think that they wouldn't go.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. I haven't made my decision as to whether I'm going to stand again, to be perfectly honest. So I think if before October I decide that I won't be continuing in council, I think the responsible thing to do would be to put one's hand up and not go off to Gladstone. If that's what the thinking of the meeting is, if I decide to retire from council before October, then I'll be letting you all know. I'm still having those discussions with my wife, to be honest. I mean, I'm thinking a particular direction, but I won't share that in a public meeting today. Okay, but if there's anyone else in that boat that decides not to stand, I think the responsible thing would be to share it with our CEO, and then he can make that call. Yeah. Okay, so good. Thanks for everybody. Let's move on. 10.10 is the 2023 National General Assembly Advocacy. That is at 171. And there is a recommendation there that's come forward from the committee. It's quite a lengthy one, Council, so we might just put that up. Well, we haven't got that on the screen, have we, Kimberly? No. But we've got it in front of us. Council, are you happy to, let me see, I'll go over to page 172 where the recommendation is. Are we happy to take that as presented? Can we take a mover? Councillor Potter will move that as presented. Do we have a seconder? Second to Councillor Shoemaker, thank you. Speakers? Any speakers? No, we discussed this at the committee. Shall we go straight to the vote? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, 10.11, Web Rock reactivation is at 173. And from the committee, we have a recommendation that South Burnett Regional Council delegates to the Chief Executive Officer, authority to engage with Web Rock as to proactive engagement and dialogue in reframing and reactivation of the Web Rock as a matter of strategic priority. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker, second to Councillor Potter. Speakers? To the vote, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10.12 is Performance Review CEO 2023 at 174. Council, we have a recommendation from the committee to move and vote on the recommendation. Should be just a matter of ordinary business. However, if we wish to engage in debate, in accordance with advice from our acting CEO, it would be prudent under the regulations to take that into confidential. But we've got the recommendation there, which I'll put forward, that South Bennett Regional Council authorise the Mayor and Deputy Mayor to progress the review with Windsor Group as per the original proposal attached to this report, and that Council engage an independent facilitator with the full Council and CEO to establish KPIs for 23-24 financial year to be adopted at the June ordinary meeting. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, second, Councillor Duff. Okay, are we happy to go to the vote, or does anyone wish to speak on the matter? No, happy to go to the vote. Okay, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10.13 is the monthly financial information report at 175. Recommendation is that the monthly financial report, including capital works and works for Queensland, as at 31 March 2023, be received and noted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, a seconder? Councillor Potter, thank you. Any speakers? Yeah, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess just a question. I know we all received a spreadsheet this morning just with an update on the capital works. Just, I guess, seeking an update in terms of what we've actually committed and spent for capital works in this financial year, and how we're looking to actually finish up the year, if all projects will actually be complete and on track. I believe we've clawed around $5 million worth of projects off our capital works program, so just keen to continue to monitor this closely.
I'm happy to go, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Acting CEO.
Through the Mayor. Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Susan, myself and Pete had a review on Monday this week. We are tracking it fairly regularly at this stage to make sure that we are seeing an increase in expenditure. I did go through the infrastructure program in detail with both Tim and with Darren Cunningham in relation to their program. At the moment, we have seen an increase in expenditure since this report was run. Not a huge amount, but enough to say that we have projects in progress. Probably a couple of bigger ones in my area. There'll be a third quarter review. I think Susan is due imminently now. At that time, there will be some amendments made. Talking through with the team, there will be some projects in progress. There are some material delivery delays, I believe, in Tim's area, so he'll have an amended program through that process. The main one with the works team, the reseal contract is in progress now, so they have been awarded. There's a number of projects there. There's a rehabilitation projects. There's 3 major ones there, which are currently in final stages of procurement, which I believe is Silverleaf, Campbell's, and might be Hivesville or one of the other roads. The other one we've seen is that since that report was run, we've seen $500,000 or thereabouts jump in resheeting expenditure. So that's only pushing up to $500,000. In discussions with the team too, we do have approvals for Reaper coming through on those roads. So we expect that there'll be some further savings made through the program and passed through to council at the third quarter review. So they'll have detailed commentary in relation to the update of those programs. Apologies, council. The three rehab projects which are about to commence by Silverleaf, by Campbell's and Cushney Fairdale. The other large project for us on our program is the TIDS project, which is the Corndale Road, which is $1.5 million. That is now at $1 million committed and expended, and there's 2 crews currently on that road, so that will be completed before the end of the financial year. The other one I'll just highlight to council too, which is an inflationary number for us, is that we're currently holding the $2 million in complementary works or ineligible costs essentially for Reaper. That's currently sitting in our program as well. So you will have some larger ones like that sitting there as well for risk aversion as well of those programs. So all discussions I've had with the guys this week, they're confident that the program will be delivered. And where it's not, it'll either be under construction through that changeover of financial year. If there's any savings, it will come back at the next quarter review. And obviously there'll be some ups and downs as previously.
Thank you, Mr. Acting CEO. Anything further, councillors? Happy to go to the vote? Yep, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, over the page to 11.1, request for naming small section of Hart Street, Blackbutt to the Roy Emerson Way, and that is at 216, where we have a recommendation from the committee that council overlay a small section of Hart Street to the Roy Emerson Way and advise the Blackbutt and district community of the proposal. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, seconded Councillor Duff. Thank you both. Speakers? Straight to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 11.2, Bunya Mountains EV charging station at 217. Committee recommendation is that officers continue to work with the Bunya Mountains Community Association Incorporated to assist with siting a future proposed electric vehicle EV charging station. Councillor Shoemaker.
Mr. Mayor, sorry, it's remiss of me. I am a member of the Bunny Mountains Community Association and I do own an investment property in the area. And on those grounds, I will actually step out of the meeting while this decision is being made and declare a conflict of interest.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll note that in the minutes. Thank you, Kimberly. Okay, Councillor, so we do have that recommendation as presented from the committee. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, a seconder. Councillor Henson, thank you. Speakers? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just on this one, myself and Pete were up at the Bunya Mountains yesterday for the Anzac service, and they did question this. They're having a meeting early on in May, their quarterly meeting up there, catch up, and they do want some information back regarding that so that they can discuss it at the meeting and move forward, because they do have to speak to Ergon and all that sort of stuff as far as getting approvals for. So could I just ask that through Pete and Aaron, that we sort of try our best to give them any information or indications on siting up there, if that's possible. Thanks, guys.
Okay. General Manager, Mr. Sia, can we take that on board? Okay, duly noted. Thank you, Councillor. Any further speakers? Happy to go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. .4, Council, is 11.3 is round 2 of the School Transport Infrastructure Program at 218 from the committee discussions, recommending that South Bennett Regional Council nominate the following projects for the round 2 School Transport Infrastructure Program, commonly abbreviated as STIP. 1, St Pat's College, Catholic College car parking and footpath upgrade in the Nango. 2, the Nango State High School footpath. 3, Tangerine State School car parking and bus set down upgrade. And 4, Mergen State School footpath. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, seconded Councillor Duff. Any speakers? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, this meeting is progressing beautifully today, and I don't want to hold it up. So I just want to say congratulations to the staff, because we were successful in the previous round, $1.5 million right across the whole region. Mergen, there's money being spent right across our region, and I just want to congratulate the staff and that TAC meeting that I'm lucky enough to chair. The work that's been done through that particular group of people that meet together was very significant in achieving that money. So let's hope that we can do exactly the same in this round. So they're all for good causes. So I'd like to commend them to the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Shall we go to the vote? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 11.4, KTP pedestrian visibility and PWD shop access, 219. From the committee, it's recommended that South Burnett Regional Council writes to South Burnett business groups articulating the strategic priority in our corporate plan relating to making our towns communities of choice for people living with disability and encouraging them to engage with their members and CBD businesses as to opportunities for improving PWD access. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, a seconder. Councillor Potter, thank you both. Speakers? To the vote, those in favour? Carried unanimously, thank you all. 11.5, Birch Road Stormwater at 220. Committee recommendation there, Council, is that South Burnett Regional Council, 1, note the report and correspondence, and 2, the works manager review and resolve the complaint. Do we have a mover? Councillor Erkins, seconder Councillor Potter, thank you. Speakers? Straight to the vote, those in favour? Carried unanimously, thank you all. 11.6, Drayton Street, Nanango footpath at 221. Committee recommendation is that the footpath on Drayton Street to Henry Street to the primary school in Nanango is upgraded as soon as funding is available. Do we have a mover? Councillor Erkin, second, and Councillor Duff. Thank you both. Any speakers? No. Straight to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 11.7 is MCU 21/0001. It's a development application in relation to Haley Street, Wandai at 222. Now, before we attend to this, I'm just going to seek advice from our acting CEO. Thank you. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just for the council's interest, when this one went to council in the previous committee session, just note that a number of councillors identified a conflict of interest due to the 5G tower. I think it was on Redmonds Road, and there was discussion around that. That is not included with this resolution, so you do not have a conflict of interest in relation to this matter here. However, noting that some of those councillors were not in the room when that matter was discussed, if you do want to discuss it, Mr. Mayor, I'd recommend that we move to confidential because we have, due to our legal privilege issues that we would need to cover.
Thank you, Mr. Acting CEO. So in light of that advice, councillors, I'll now probably seek some feedback from councillors. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Being that we didn't receive the briefing, I would like to go into close to discuss this item and receive the briefing before voting on the matter.
Kimberly, are we able to get up on councillor screens the relevant provision under the Local Government Regulation 2012? There is a provision, section 254J- I think we might be on E, are we, for that one? Legal matters? We'll just get that on the screen for councillors, and then we can, yeah, okay. So we've got that there, councillors, that the matter is considered to be confidential under section 254J-E of the Local Government, and that council would go into closed to discuss such. So, Councillor Shoemaker, are you happy to move that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So we'll take that as moved. You can see that as presented on screen, councillors. Moved by Councillor Shoemaker that we go into close in relation to this matter under 254J-E of the Local Government Regulation. Seconded by Councillor Erkins. Anyone to speak on this? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you. Okay, so let's go straight to the vote on this. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. We'll now close out and go into confidential, and kindly ask any members of the public gallery to give us a few minutes. Come back to open council, and the recommendation in relation to 11.7 is that council delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to mediate and resolve planning and environment court appeal 2922/22 VB1884 Proprietary Limited versus South Burnett Regional Council in relation to MCU 21/0001 79 and 81 Haley Street, Wandai, service station and ancillary food and drink outlet and shop on behalf of council. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Erkins. Any speakers? To the vote, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, 12.1, Facade Improvement Program, quick round at 223. where we have a recommendation from the committee that in accordance with the approved grant budget and grant guidelines, that the remaining funds of $95,000 be allocated for the delivery of the South Burnett Region Facade Improvement Quick Round, open to all businesses in all towns in the South Burnett, holding street frontage, are open to the public and have signage visible from the street. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconded Councillor Shoemaker. Speakers? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just really happy with this. I know that the community, a lot of the businesses were upset when they weren't included, and now it's open to everyone, and I know there's a lot of people taking it up and excited about it, so I think it's a great outcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Further speakers? No, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Council, we're up to 12.2, lease with Baido at 224. This has been through the committee where we've received a recommendation as presented there on pages 224 and 225 in relation to the exception in the local government regulation applying for the way of grant of a lease to Baido, and that we delegate to the CEO the power to negotiate, finalise and execute the lease between council and Baido, and that council resolves that the exception in regulation section 2361B2 applies to council for the disposal of unused shelving stored at the old council office in Gore Street, Mergen, by way of gifting to Baido. So that's the recommendation in essence. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconded Councillor Potter. Any speakers to the vote? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 12.3, in-kind support, Bacon Fest 2023. That's at 226, where we have a recommendation, summary report, council there, which goes on to provide a recommendation that the South Burnett Regional Council approve the requested in-kind assistance to the 2023 Bacon Fest, subject to available resources, including assistance with the TMP, which is Traffic Management Plan, to be prepared after community engagement with the surrounding and affected businesses. Do we have a mover? Yes, Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Duff. Any speakers? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm 100% supportive of this proposal. I think that it's what council needs to do. It's what used to happen back before amalgamation, is that we jumped in and supported these events. This is a particularly big one. I'm going to, into the future, encourage all community groups that are holding major events in their towns to actually go through this process. And with the Mergen Easter Spectacular, I didn't think they needed to, because they were only asking for wheelie bins and support with the traffic management plan, but they didn't. The relationship broke down unfavourably for council, because the reputation of council was damaged, because when they went to get support for a traffic management plan, council said they didn't have the resources to help them. Then when they tried to get the wheelie bins, they ended up not getting the wheelie bins and doing it all themselves, and they got upset about it because there was a breakdown in communication. And in hindsight, I wish that I had said to them, this is a really big event for Mergen. You need to put it in dot points, because sometimes it falls outside the actual community grant process, and just put it in dot points and take it to a council meeting. So fully supportive of this, but yeah, just encouraging all those bigger events that just fall outside that in-kind support to go through this process.
For the benefit of the community, Councillor Duff, up to $2,000 can just go through automatically as in-kind, but over that needs to come to council. Is that what you're referring to? Am I correct?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Potter.
Yep. No, look, I think this is great, but I actually think with a follow-on to what Councillor Duff is saying, wouldn't it be really good, Mr Mayor, if we knew exactly what all of these different organisations wanted? With Bacon Fest, we basically know what they want, because this is very similar to what we gave them last year, I think. I'd have to probably double check with GMO May on that one, but I think this is similar to what we gave them last year. but it'd be really good for us to know as a council, because we're preparing the budget, what the different groups wanted and what their plans were for the future. I do think that would really help us along. Thank you.
General Manager O'May, your thoughts?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Yeah, I probably do support what Councillor Duff is talking about. The in-kind has tended to creep out a little bit, and I think now that we are looking at traffic management plans, and particularly some of the signage and manning those road closures. We will see yesterday there's a huge amount of road closures and council staff everywhere, and the SES, you can't rely on them for those anymore, given up and down numbers. So yeah, it's probably something I did want to talk to council through the and probably through our budget process. Anything involving maybe a TMP, because the infrastructure team are certainly got a major project in front of them, so they find themselves having to outsource that. So you're actually paying for those TMPs to be provided by a private company rather than in-house. So there is a cost involving those. So yeah, I was probably keen to start that conversation around how we support the organisations, and so whether it is, if it involves a TMP and road closures, things they probably need to come back through council and be approved, or whether we need to have a separate process through the in-kind. Yeah, the wheelie bins, like the Mergen Easter Fair was, of course, it was just one of those, if anything was going to go wrong, it had to happen there. It just was probably schmozzle, and I'm not sure why. Yeah, we did drop the ball on that sort of thing, but yeah, the TMPs are becoming sort of the requirement for those and the costs involved, because we can't necessarily deliver in-house. So I think that's something, and we're probably at the next budget meeting probably keen to have a little bit further discussion around that in-kind, what's available, and separating out TMPs would be a good starting point.
Thank you, General Manager. Okay, who's next? Lost track. Well, we can start this corner and go around. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, I recognise how important this level of support is for a major event. I was actually here at the pack down of Bacon Fest. I volunteered for the full Bacon Fest festival and helped out the committee as much as I could on those days. And I can tell you that small group of volunteers were absolutely exhausted when it comes to actually packing up all the furniture here. So I think anything that we can do to try to help any of our volunteer committees put together events like these that bring hundreds and even, dare I say, thousands of people to our region is really, really, really important. I had two questions. One, traffic management plan for Glendon Street shared space. Is that something that we have created, will be available for use by other community groups into the future? How can we actually rent spaces like that have been created for this kind of outcome and actually have a standard traffic management plan? I imagine it would be quite a standard closure. It's my first question, GM Ian.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So with Glendon Street, probably three different types of events that we expect to have in there. One is where we actually just close the shared area out through there. If we were to proceed with the boom gates, depending on whether we hold budget or not, we are asking for a traffic management review on that plan. The other one with the high school formals, we had plans done up last year, which we believe can be used in the future, which I actually think we got a pretty good outcome, to be honest. Less signs is more sometimes. With regard to Bacon Fest, Mark has asked that I meet with the team from Bacon Fest again, as we did last year, and just help work with them on what the layout looks like, to make sure that we've got something that allows people to move through the area, but also cars and those sort of things. Just in regards to traffic management plans, just to support Pete's comments, traffic management plans, in my opinion, my humble opinion, has gotten bigger than Ben-Hur. It's similar to the signs that we see on roadworks and those sort of things. So with the some of the events that we're seeing, it come to light the other day that we have to use the event signage ones now, which are a fluoro green sign, as opposed to a road closure sign. We costed that to Anzac Day. That is $35,000 for those signs in that order, which is just, so we are working through some of these issues where, traditionally where, like you talk about the other days and like, we generally try to help people out where we can. to help them with their traffic management plans and the traffic control and those sort of things. But those costs are absolutely escalated. Like even for our own works, our road works, for works that we have now, and I'll bring one into council one day, literally is as thick as the mayor's blue folder there is that thick for the stuff. Because you don't actually have to have you have to have a traffic management plan now, and now you also have to have a traffic guidance scheme. So, and to give you an idea, it costs us between $700 and $800 a throw per plan for us to. So when a community group comes and says, can you give us a TMP, we're looking around, by the time you put our time in, you're looking at probably around $1,000. And if you're doing traffic control, you're looking between $2,000 and $3,000 per day. So for a small community event, all of a sudden the event becomes bigger than Ben-Hur. So probably the short of it is if we can get a generic plan for some of these venues, even if it's Mergen as well, if we're going to have regular events there, we can get a generic plan, which we're happy to distribute. And if we can hold that and help out, happy to do it.
Thank you, Mr Acting CEO. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yeah, thank you. I think that'd be a great outcome. Just Councillor Duff mentioned the Egg Spectacular in Mergen. Certainly, actually wasn't aware. I don't know how I missed that one, but I did miss that event. And while we all try very hard to stay on top of community events, sometimes it's really hard to fit them in the calendar. Certainly saw it was a fabulous event. I wasn't aware of, I'm sure there's probably email train here that I've missed, but I wasn't aware of the challenges that team had or that breakdown in communication. And I'm not aware of what it actually cost council to respond or how we responded. So it's probably a question on notice. I think there could be some learnings there that we take into other events. I'd like to better understand how that happened, what council actually contributed to that event in helping to make it happen, and I guess how we responded and how we can plan to better respond into the future. And certainly I think if we are closing streets for major events, certainly as councillors, I'd love to receive a date claimer that said this event is happening on that date, because I think we all very much try our best to get across the community. And I know Councillor Erkins and I were sitting at the Business Awards here in Kingaroy, and she said, oh, there's a great big Easter festival seems to be happening on Facebook that I wasn't aware of. So I know that's on me. I've missed that somewhere. But I would like to better understand that, because if we're going to shape up a policy in how we're going to respond, and if we're going to fund a policy, we really need to understand some of these grassroots. And this may be an opportunity for us as a council to take some of those learnings and learn from what happened and how we can improve. So that's my question on notice. And just in closing, I certainly just wanted to acknowledge the incredible South Burnett Regional Council Parks and Gardens staff and all roads crews, everybody who was out yesterday making those Anzac Day celebrations happen. Certainly I talked to the Parks and Gardens crew in the park yesterday morning who'd been at the Kingaroy Park, Memorial Park, as early as 3 o'clock in the morning, which they recognise and value the contribution of our Anzacs and how important that day is. And they certainly weren't complaining but they were getting to work, making that happen, and that's amazing. So we're so lucky to have those people out across the region yesterday being part and ensuring our Anzac Day celebrations could happen. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Erkins.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm actually a little confused on the in-kind support, because I was under the impression if we got money from council that we weren't able to get in-kind support. But I do know at our last NAPTA meeting, Mr. Mayor, you encouraged the committee to apply for some in-kind support with their rubbish, especially in particular, because I do know that a lot of these organisations, and NAPTA would be a prime example, most of those members are elderly, and dealing with rubbish, I know from the Christmas carnival, we shifted the rubbish out of the bins to leave bins empty for council to pick up. And for elderly people, it's not easy. So I really support council giving in-kind support for these events, because the bottom line is these are volunteers putting on things for our community, which really, I think is a great thing. And to put if we as a council can make things a little easier for them, I'm definitely in support of that. I also would like to mention the Nanango garden staff. You know, they were there for the dawn service, they were up at the cemetery, they were back for the main parade, they were shifting chairs. And again, in past years, I've seen the RSL members there having to stack chairs and organise that. And that was really a great thing. It made everything run so much smoother, and I'd like to congratulate the staff for doing that. But pretty supportive of not just this, but of helping other organisations to put on events.
Councillor Hencher.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, fully supportive of this, that's for sure, and as Councillor Duff has said, other community events. Draw your attention to, there's 24 dot points in this, which is a fairly well documented in-kind support piece of literature here. But also take note of dot points 9, 12, 13, 14 and 21, where they're all council guys and girls, men and women, that are donating their time on Saturdays and Sundays for this. And as Councillor Erkins has alluded to yesterday, can I also, through the managers, please take a shout out the guys that were involved in Anzac Day yesterday, and the women, the men and women that were there yesterday from daylight until well into late in the afternoon, that gave up their public holiday to go and do what they did in kind support for Anzac Day. And I know none of them, I spoke to them in Cumbria, that when they finished there, they had to be down in Warrulan. I said, I'll see you there. They beat me down to Warrulan. I'm not sure how they did that, but they did. So a huge shout out to our staff that help out in this in-kind process. And as you read that, we will have our staff doing restrooms on Saturdays and Sundays. We'll be doing garbage truck pickups early 1 p.m, 6 a.m. on Sundays, Saturdays, Sundays and Mondays. We've got a council forklift there with a licensed forklift driver to drive. These are the things that probably go a little bit unnoticed, so a huge shout out to them. Fully supportive of it. There's cost implications, of course, but a wonderful event in our wonderful region. So, yeah, just like to note that also last year we had some feedback in relation to power. I would like to see, Mr Mayor, through you, and I'm sure there will be, a detailed media release just exactly what's happening, because last year there was a power outage where council got blamed and Baconfest got blamed, and it had absolutely nothing to do. It was just a freak timing that the power actually went out, I think down in Kingaroy, Alfred Street, I'm not just sure now, which had a bit of an effect on some businesses in our township. So I'd like to see, Mr Mayor, that a detailed media release, and I'm sure there will be, incorporating some of these dot points, or most of these dot points in here, so that the public are aware of just exactly what's going on. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr Acting CEO, in light of the comments from Council today, wonder would you be so kind as to have a message sent to all of the teams involved in supporting Anzac Day yesterday from the full Council, acknowledging and thanking them for their efforts. Second point, sorry, yes. Yep.
Sorry,
Yes.
Mr Mayor, I was just going to, if you're happy to mention that, I think the big success this year was we've had coordinated meetings between the RSL, Council and Queensland Police Service and other entities. So I think if you're happy for us to acknowledge that partnership as well, that'll be...
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mr Acting CEO. Councillor, just on that, Mr Acting CEO, Councillor Henson mentioned that staff are donating their time to Baconfest. Are we remunerating our staff for this, or are they doing this in their own time? Are they donating their time, or are they being paid?
No, through Mr Mayor, they'll be paid. I took the councillor's point is that they're volunteering to give up their time to work those days, I think.
Okay.
If I've got that right, councillor. Apologies.
Okay, so we're not asking our staff to do it for free. They will be paid. Second, other question then is, the $10,000 figure that's in there, does that include the staff wages for the overtime incurred? General Manager?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Yeah, so that's generally a fair percentage of the cost. Yeah, we set up a job number, they book their wages too, their overtime and that. So, and then if it is contractor costs, and this is probably the discussion I wanted to have with council, where we had in-kind support previously, where passing guards might be delivering tables and chairs to a function during the week. It's absorbed into their normal day-to-day costs they're being paid for. the more and more in-kind that we're doing on the weekends, there's overtime, there's JJ Richards involved, there's contract cleaners involved. Those things are actually come at a cost that aren't in council's budget. So that's where the costs are, the more and more of that is where it impacts the budget, whereas in-kind support, whereas previously providing marquees and shades and different things through the week, those costs are, I suppose, saved in the parks budget if they're working on that rather than in the parks. You reduce that level of service, but there is more and more of that weekend if we, particularly, at night time and that sort of thing, or Sundays, like where you. So yeah, that's probably where the discussion is, just understanding that yes, we need to support these organisations, but there is that cost element.
General Manager, I wonder whether we could consider perhaps writing to those organisations that we know have historically held major events across our region, in accordance with Councillor Potter's suggestion, for the 24 calendar year. If we had an understanding of which events are happening, we could probably do two things. One, we can get that into councillors' calendars, but secondly, we could also ask them to perhaps provide a little bit of information around their in-kind support. That may then be able to be built into the budget deliberations for the 24-25 budget. I know it's not going to be time, there's not going to be time this year, or we may be able to even do a budget revision after Q2 or Q3 once we get that information back, because seems to me that we're going to get more of these requests, and I fully support them, but a proper process, to my mind, would be to actually budget for these things, even if it's just an estimated amount, so that we can actually be prepared for that. We may well go over it depending on what comes through, but some better planning around this seems to be where council wants to go. GM, your thoughts around that?
I fully agree, and I think I might put something together and have, whether it's a bit of a quick workshop as part of the budget with council, or like an hour on this, because I think this is where we need to be supporting the in-kind things. The rubbish collection is where people struggle more so than a $2,000 grant where they can get from somewhere else. So yeah, I think it was my idea of this year's budget was potentially maybe focus more on beefing up the in-kind support, putting some guidelines and a bit more support in it, rather than actual focusing on funding, because there's additional funding out from other avenues. So yeah, I was probably keen to have that discussion, and sounds like opportune time.
Thank you, General Manager. Mate, anything to close, Councillor Potter? No. Let's go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. One more item and then we'll break for morning tea. 12.4, support applying for suitable funding options at 220. I've got the page number wrong there. Where are we at? 228? Oh no, I've got that right. Yes. I'm really going to have to go to OPSM, aren't I? I think I've actually made an appointment for that. There we are. Thank you, Kimberly. So we have a recommendation for the committee there, Council, that Council offer grant writing support to the Boonderma Museum and Heritage Association Incorporated to apply for funding to assist them in the purchase of suitable equipment to mow their grounds. Do we have a mover? Yep, Councillor Henson, seconded Councillor Potter. Any speakers? Councillor Duff.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So I called into the Homestead since this decision was made, and we obviously are ratifying the decision, but at the committee meeting, they are really concerned about the longevity of, like, the fact that mower that they're currently using is just in an absolute state of disrepair. The caretaker there is just sort of nursing it along, and he's spending so much time just trying to get it to go. So just wanting to know if, while they wait for that process to go through and we support them with getting a grant for the mower, can we loan them that mower that we had in mind, or provide them with a mower in the interim, because they are very, very frustrated with the current situation.
Okay, General Manager O'May.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I might have our parks facility team sort of catch up with them and see whether it is going to be a matter of if we do need to provide contract services in the interim. We know the community gambling is opening very shortly, but there will be that time frame to get something. But yeah, we might just open up those lines of communication where there's just alternatives rather using contract services, hopefully over the next coming months. well, yeah, the mowing won't be such a big issue, but we need to get it sorted for next spring, summer.
Happy with that, councillor Duff?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Good, thank you. Councillor Henson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, that's probably, thanks, Manager O'May, been answered. Honestly, they'd probably be lucky to mow it once in the next 6 months with winter coming around. But yeah, whether there's an option there for council to use our services or a contractor there. The manager there at the moment certainly does spend some time on the mower. He's had it looking absolutely immaculate, but certainly with the weather conditions at the moment, there's not a lot of mowing needs to be done there for a while. But yeah, fully supportive of if we can help in some shape or form and time until some grant may be available. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Jones.
Yeah, just quickly, in regards, through you, Mayor, in regards to what Councillor Duff said, with that mower that was proposed, or they wanted that mower out there, rather than worrying about putting extra burden onto our staff or even paying money for contractors, is it not an option? And I would be happy to support giving that mower if it was suitable and safe enough for that particular group to continue using that until the grant has been written and I guess put in, and whether or not it was financial or not, because they'd be one of the groups that I would certainly look in favour of supporting, because they do have a large amount of grass to mow out their grounds and maintain. So is it a possibility, rather than using our staff and contractors, that if that mower's ready to go, put that mower out there temporary, make sure it's understood that it's temporary, and if they do get a successful grant application, that it comes back?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, no, certainly happy to look at that, and even if it is sort of for that area around the homestead, sort of, and if there's rougher areas that you could just get it slashed when, as they said, might only be once for the season, might be needed shortly, but yeah, happy to look at both options. Like, yeah, if we have got something available we can just send out there, then it does make sense to do that. That's suitable, rather than actually pay additional costs. But if council's happy, because it is ultimately a council facility, so we're going to be responsible for keeping the grass down. So if you're happy, we can work with the team, with the fleet guys, and keep them going. Yep.
Okay, thank you all. Shall we go to the vote? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, time to adjourn for morning tea. Do we have a mover? Councillor Henson, thank you. A seconder? Councillor Jones. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. We'll now adjourn. Thank you all. In favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 15.1, Tangura Sports Ground toilet upgrades at 2:30. Committee recommendation is that electricity upgrades to the distribution board and 2 weatherproof lights be installed at the Tangura Sports Ground toilets under Council's operational budget, and Council partners with the Tangura Cricket Club to seek sponsorship opportunities and external funding to develop water access and infrastructure on the site and for the supply of water to the facility in the short term, and to investigate funding a permanent supply of water to the facility long term. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconded. Councillor Potter. Speakers? To the vote, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 15.2, Regional Inspection Program for Public Amenities at 2:32. Okay, we have a committee recommendation there that the 6 facilities rated 7 or higher are included in future capital works programs for replacement or refurbishment as outlined in the schedule below, which is shown on page 233. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconder. Councillor Jones, thank you. Speakers? To the vote, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 15.3, installation of signage at Coomber Falls, 2:34. Recommendation from the committee is that council install signage to Coomber Falls to ensure members of the public are alerted to the dangers of swimming in rivers, creeks and waterholes. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconded. Councillor Jones. Speakers? To the vote, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 15.4, new compressors for engines at the South Bend Energy Centre in the Nango, which is 2:35, where the committee has recommended that the compressor for running the historical engines in the South Bend Energy Centre, the Nango, is replaced in the 22-23 financial year, and the replacement of compressor is funded from the Building Capital Condition Assessment Restricted Cash. Do we have a mover? Councillor Henson, seconder. Councillor Erkins, speakers. To the vote, those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. 16.1, local-led economic recovery program at 236. And we have a recommendation there, Council, that Council apply for a maximum of $250,000 for locally led economic recovery program. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconded Councillor Erkin. Speakers? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think this is a great opportunity to apply for funding to support this, and as the disaster recovery chair, I'm keen to be involved in the whole project. If and when we get the money, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Further speakers? Go to the vote. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. 16.2, request to appoint proxies, proxy members to the Arts, Culture and Heritage Advisory Committee. We'll go to page 250. Committee has recommended that the Council appoint the following individuals as proxy members of the Arts, Culture and Heritage Advisory Committee in accordance with the Arts, Culture and Heritage Terms of Reference. 1, South Burnett Community Orchestra, Susan Mollenhauer. 2, South Burnett Arts Incorporated, Dafford Martindale. 3, Wandai Art Gallery, Maureen Addenbrook. 4, South Burnett Musical Comedy Society, Andrew Schloss. And 5, Blackbutt Art Gallery Incorporated, Trish Jacobson. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Erkins. Speakers? To the vote, those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. 17.1, Council, is at 251, material change of use for extension to an existing feedlot. We have a recommendation there, Council, at 251, that application for a material change of use development permit for an extension to the existing feedlot at 97 Sloss Road, Cushney, be approved subject to conditions and recommendations contained herein. And the conditions, Council, are shown on page 251, 252, 253 and 254. So we'll take those as presented. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, a seconder. Councillor Henson. Speakers? Councillor Duff.
So, yes, Mr Mayor, I'm going to speak against this recommendation. I've been out to the feedlot and also seen the concerns raised by the submitters. I didn't actually go the day we went to the feedlot, but I've seen the feedlot and the way that they're operating, and met with some of the submitters, with some of the other councillors. On page 253 in the ENG 10, under the environmental section, it says that waste and odour management section, and I'm saying that this is already causing concerns. We are now planning to approve an extension to the existing feedlot from 150 up to 1,000 SCUs. And on page 260, surrounding land uses, the nearest residential receiver is approximately 360 metres from the subject site boundary. And the national guidelines, it says we now use an S-factor equation to assess whether that's okay. And I remember, and I spoke to General Manager May earlier about, it used to be 2 kilometres, that was just a general rule of thumb, that if you were within 2 kilometres of a residence, those intensive feedlots were considered not an option. And now we're talking, this one is 360 metres from the subject site boundary. And my concern is that the odour is already causing concerns, because in the day I was there, I could smell, it was the afternoon, I could actually smell the feedlot when it was only up to 150. Now we're talking up to 1,000. I can imagine the impact. We're basing our decision in some respects on page 264. The applicant said they're not going to increase the overall cattle turnover on an annual basis, but spread the number out. But that doesn't mean that it can't become intensive feeding, because we, through this process, are allowing that to happen. So we based our assumption on the fact that the applicants have said, you know, they're going to not actually do intensive feeding, but we are approving an option for intensive feeding. The site, although zone rural, is surrounded by some smaller blocks that through lifestyle purchases have become more of a rural residential footprint. On page 268, the dot point, there's dot point number 3, there's no information was provided about calculating the capacity or design needed for sediment basin and holding ponds. The National Feedlot Guidelines says the gradient should be 2.5 to 4%. And based on a quick topography calculation, we measured 5%. So we did a quick assessment. There's already concerns about overflow from an existing dam. And now we're talking about going from, again, as I say, from 150 to 1,000. Imagine the impact that that's going to have on that watercourse. So I'm just, yes, absolutely speaking against the proposal, and because based on those planning outcomes. So just wanting to flag that I won't be supporting this application. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Through you, Mayor. Councillor Duff, you just said that you'd met with the objectors, and then you said that you'd been out to the feedlot, and then you said you hadn't, but you've seen it how it operates. How can you, how do you tell without being upfront and getting a tour? How do you tell how a feedlot's working and operational without actually being there? Just a question. But look, the officer's recommendation says here, be approved subject to conditions and recommendations contained herein. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, through you, Mayor, to the people here at the back that have just arrived. If the application meets all recommendations and all requirements, and we've already had one this morning that we discussed. Now, it is very, very difficult to vote against an application, a development application, if they adhere to all conditions. Is that correct? Through the Mayor to Darryl or Dave?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Obviously, as the report indicates, this development does have an environmental authority, which is issued by the Department of Environment and Science. So as part of that process, it's the responsibility of DES to take on all the environmental concerns, impacts regarding the development. So really in relation to environmental impacts from this development, it's a matter for the state to make their own assessment and determination and condition accordingly.
Yeah, so I guess that answers my question. So if the state have the authority over the environmental rather than the council, is that correct?
Yes, that's through you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, that's correct. So the state would assess it under the Environmental Protection Act, and they've obviously issued a environmental authority accordingly. So
in hearing that, we're dealing as a council with a development application, and if they meet all requirements, and we had this one this morning, I refer back to what we said, they have conditions. A pre-approval was only given as long as they met all conditions that were required of them, and I can't see the difference between that one and this one, and hearing that the actual state has the final say over any environmental impact. So what we're dealing with here is a development application, in my view, and correct me if I'm wrong, and if the applicant meets all requirements, you have to be very, very, very sure that you've got a really good reason to vote it or not support it. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr Mayor, obviously, yeah, how council votes is up to them, but obviously, yeah, once that authority has been issued, any matters of non-compliance in relation to that approval is managed by the state as well. It's not managed by council.
Okay, thank you. So that's answered all my concerns. So the recommendation as it reads, and I'm only speaking for myself, I'll be voting in favour of it simply because be approved subject to conditions and recommendations contained herein, that council has control over, the state has a final say over any impact or environmental issues. So yeah, that's all I have to say on this. So yeah, I will be moving forward in favour of it.
Councillor Erkins.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. My concern is we have staff who make recommendations who are qualified to check to make sure that we are complying with all the conditions. If we go against their recommendations, is this saying that the applicant can then dispute that and take us to planning court? And we spoke this morning about unnecessary costs for our council. Are we putting unnecessary costs in going and fighting things that we're not going to win when something is complying with everything by voting against our officer's recommendation, then leaving ourselves open to incur costs for our council which are not necessarily in the best interests of our council?
Okay, Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Now, I have met with both parties. I went to both properties, spoke with everyone involved, and I would like to think that in a situation like this, we do trust our staff, we trust, and that we trust everything that they've done in their training. They're the ones that are trained in this matter, not us. They know what they're doing, and I do trust them, and I trust that the EPA will know what they're doing as well. So I will be voting for this. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Right, Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, as some of my fellow colleagues, we did afford the neighbours and the feedlot people involved in this assessment the time to look at both sides. Personally myself, I have experienced this many years ago, and I know exactly the feelings of both sides of this. When you read through this report, and it started some 12 months ago in April, 19th of April 2022, when an application was lodged, we're now 12 months down the track, and there's been nothing happen as far as development and future expansion of a business that, as a council, we're supposed to encourage development. And on a particular page, there's a $17 million figure mentioned there. I would have thought it's not just the council officers, and I appreciate the work the council officers do with this, because it's probably a fairly arduous task. It goes backwards and forwards, but there's many other agencies that have to be considered in this development application. In relation to all the facts there that state that they have to comply, there's stormwater, environmental, parking, vehicles, turnout, engineering, and the list goes on and on. In the event of any non-compliance, I would be, and knowing from experience, that is stood on very quickly. Anyone that's doing a development application like this has to adhere to all these rules and regulations, hence is why we now have this in front of us. Again, they've gone through an arduous task over 12 months of complying and complying and complying, and it's in front of us that if a council was to vote against a development in any department that was of value to a community dollar-wise and a community in a township-wise, I don't think we'd have many developments past this desk. We are a rural sector with a massive agricultural cattle industry. We only have a handful of feedlots in our region. When people compare us, and people love to compare us to neighbouring councils, the spin-off from those is enormous. And I think if communities can work with these things in time, I think they can get a great benefit out of them, be that through some form of employment, be that through some form of fodder supplies or cereal grains or hay or something. That can be very beneficial when it's next door or 5k down the road from you. And I'm sure that would have a flow-on effect as well. As Councillor Jones has alluded to, a very bold council to vote against this when we will be back, dare I say, in front of courts, and dare I say, and I'm not sure whether a manager can answer this, but don't expect them to, but if an application ticks all the boxes and it goes to court, it will win. That would be a massive cost on our region and our taxpayers. So I'm a rural guy myself. I understand the impacts they can have on some people. If I took my councillor hat off, I think any feedlot should be greatly encouraged within our region because they have far greater benefits than they do have negativities if they follow all management and compliance practices. So I'll be voting in favour of this, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly empathise with both the operators and of the feedlot and the near neighbours and recognise that these kinds of operations are always a challenge. For me, making this decision has been a reminder of how important the decisions we make around land use and zoning and our major planning scheme really are. It's pretty clear that previous subdivisions have allowed for lifestyle lots to be formed around prime agricultural land. And it's a reminder of the challenges that we face as a region when that has actually occurred, and that when we have rural operators wanting to increase their capacity and increase their operations. However, we have neighbouring residents who don't necessarily accept those operations. It consistently puts council in a difficult position. However, when reading over the application, I read on page 269 that agricultural lands are preserved for productive rural activities by only supporting rural development that directly supports agricultural production or regionally significant rural-based industry. The development of an intensive animal industry like piggeries and feedlots are facilitated by providing appropriate separation and setbacks to ensure that rural residential lifestyles are not compromised. The proposed feedlot productive rural activity in a designated rural and important agricultural area, productive rural land, it is noted that the proposed feedlot is in a rural area, not a rural residential area. The economic benefit from the use of the rural land supports South Burnett Region's economy. The existing grazing operations on the site, including the spelling of consignment cattle and value add to own cattle so that cattle can be fattened and sent to the abattoir. The site also maintains a cropping activity with the land in use, in part used for irrigated sorghum and forage oats on a 3-year rotational cropping system. The proposed operation will generate employment for 5 permanent staff and 2 casual staff members. The annual turnover of the operation is anticipated to be above $17 million. And in addition, the proposed use will employ approximately 12 subcontractors. The silage used at the feedlot is produced in the area from the region from the expenditure at the rural supply stores, veterinary and mechanical workshops, all utilising local suppliers and employment. There is no assessed identified conflict between the proposal and the strategic framework outcomes and theme. The zone code is for rural land. And I've been over the conditions quite extensively. There are a number of conditions put on the operator, and I know firsthand the management of an environmental authority is not easy. They will have to monitor their operations. They will have to be good neighbours in terms of delivering on their operations. So with everything that I've read and both meetings that I've had and all that I know it's a very difficult decision, and I do empathise with both parties. But at the end of the day, the development is in line with our planning scheme, and it's also in line with the state planning policy. And therefore, I feel it would be irresponsible of me to dismiss that based on the other factors of what people have put forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Has any councillor not had an opportunity to speak? Okay, everyone's spoken. All right, I'm going to share a few observations here. I heard everyone talk, and then we'll go to Councillor Potter to close if she feels the need to prior to voting on this. These are always serious matters, of course, and I know we all take them very seriously. I'm not going to subscribe to a theory that we tick every box that our staff put in front of us. We are elected as a council to make decisions for our community. Otherwise, we would have the CEO making the decisions, not the elected body. That's very clear in the Local Government Act. That's why these development approvals come to us. I don't have faith in the regulatory requirement, in the way in which we follow up, or the regulatory bodies follow up on compliance. Now, we have a piggery in our region that was approved and allowed to, unabated, increase significantly the number of SPUs, well beyond their approval. Nothing was done until the community raised it. Months and months after, they went well above their approved conditions. We have a fish farm in our region that seems to be allegedly causing significant damage to a neighbouring property, killing blue gums and affecting cultivation country. The neighbours have consistently made approaches to us at a council, and we seem to be powerless to stop that from happening to the neighbouring property. I haven't got the confidence in the regulatory provisions that protect neighbours in this space, similar to renewable energies, in this space that my colleagues seem to have shared here today. I do not have that confidence. I cannot in all good conscience support this, believing that we or the state government are going to be out there on site monitoring the noise, dust and odour coming from that feedlot, monitoring the flow of stormwater across the natural watercourse into the neighbouring property. Because I'm sorry, but in my 3 years in council, I haven't seen anything that's given me confidence in this space. And I could talk about some local manufacturing companies in town that have adversely impacted on our sewerage network. Again, wasn't identified until some neighbours had sewerage through their houses and it was flooded. Now, I'm not directing this at staff. I speak with complete respect for our technical officers. You are very good at what you do. I understand that. And you put forward what you're required to under the legislation and the regulations, and I respect that. But we have a role to play too. And our role is to represent our community. And I will not be held to, I'll be held to account by the people that elected as an elected representative, and I will always act in what I think is their best interests. Now, there have been best interest argument put forward here today around employment. However, when I look at this report, officers, I say apologetically that I do see some concerning issues here. Number one, it says that this is going to increase to 1,000 SCUs. But then when we look at the report, it talks about that they've got a report from the department saying they can have up to 900 SPUs. Now, I know it's only an extra 100, but I'm not sure what impact that would then have. So there's a discrepancy there. And that's from the Environmental Authority, issued by DAF. I have a concern with the proximity to the residents. I'm pro-development, don't get me wrong. I'm pro-agriculture, always have been. My ancestors settled some of this country as agriculturists. We've had 5 generations of farmers in our family. But I don't know that I'm prepared to support a feedlot that is, how far is it? 300 metres from someone's home? Or 676, was it? Is that the closest? 676 metres from the holding pond. Okay, so well, when I'm finished, I will. Thank you, Councillor. I'll have a few questions shortly, staff, but in my 5 minutes, I'm concerned that this is going to adversely impact on people's properties, their property values, their lifestyles, I've got real concerns about this. And noise, dust, stormwater flow, odour, who's going to make sure that that the dust mitigation measures are maintained on their roads? We can't even maintain dust mitigation measures on our own gravel roads. How does a rural property do that on a dirt road when they're going to have multiple trucks coming and going, delivering feed, moving cattle in and out? How do we know that that stormwater that overflows out of that pond is not going to flow into the neighbours' properties? So my questions would be to our staff, yes, first of all, how far is this property How far is the holding pond from the nearest neighbour? Number one. Number two, what assurance can we give the neighbours that the noise, the dust and the odour will be managed and dealt with on an ongoing basis to allow them to enjoy the lifestyle that they expected when they bought or settled themselves on those properties next door? I'll refer that to through you. Thank you, Mr. General Manager.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so the first question we can answer, like on page, what is that page? 275, so it does talk impact on sensitive receptors. We're talking at 626 metres away from the holding pond of the proposed feedlot. So that's to the closest, that's the closest house, the closest sensitive receptor. I believe Councillor Duff was talking about from the boundary of the feedlot rather than the infrastructure. So the holding pond is obviously infrastructure as part of the feedlot, whereas Councillor Duff was referring to the boundary, so that's a separate distance. So just on that, the assessment of that talks about that the minimum distance, and as Councillor Duff talked about earlier, the department uses S factor now rather than an arbitrary figure. It's scientifically based, a calculation based on predominant wind speed, land topography, a number of factors. And they're saying that the minimum factor there required was 441 metres, so it meets that. The other issues that we've talked around, the control of the noise, the dust, the odour. So this process, and Councillor Henson mentioned this has been a 12-month process. This has been the staff raised a number of those issues in response to some of the concerns from the neighbours, those exact type issues. The proponents have gone away and delivered a number of reports addressing those concerns. So this is with the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries, because they are the lead agencies that oversee the Environmental Authority, so the operations of the feedlot. So they've provided a number of reports that have been supplied to DAF. They're obviously comfortable with those reports because they have issued the Environmental Authority. And so given that issuing of that authority, then that's where we've been able to support the application from a planning ground, because those issues have been addressed through that Environmental Authority process. Probably just the other point, the difference between the 1,000 SCU and the 900 SCU, so it is approved through DAF for 900 standard cattle units. It's really the definition in our planning scheme, which is a category of 150 to 1,000. So it doesn't actually, the Environmental Authority, they will be limited to that 900 standard cattle unit, but it's just that category of planning approval is that within that 150 to 1,000 SCU. So it's a generalistic term. So hopefully, I'm not sure if the planning guys want to add anything extra, but hopefully I've addressed everything there.
You have. Thank you, General Manager. So thanks for clarifying that. So it's 626 metres from the holding pond, and the 900 SCUs would be the limit that would be imposed by the department. Thank you for that, and I stand corrected. Look, just wrapping up my time, summary of assessment issues. Truck movements. It says that there was no information provided to Cattle Council regarding feed truck movements, and that they're indicating in here that truck movements won't increase because of the proposal. I find that really hard to believe when you go from 150 up to 900 SCUs, that there isn't going to be greater movement of trucks in and out of that property. No information was provided calculating the capacity design for sediment. With increased rainfall, and let's face it, we do have days, we're in a climate now, for whatever reason, that we seem to get more and more flood events. We've had 5 flood events in Cushney in the last 12 months. Now, it says here, with increased rainfall and natural drainage, this is on top of page 258, surrounding the feedlot pens, there is a concern for runoff/pollution. According to national feedlot guidelines, the gradient of pens should be 2.5 to 4%. Based on a quick topography calculation, we measured 5%. Cattle truck deliveries should be between 6 p.m. and 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. So does that mean that cattle trucks are going to be coming there at midnight or 2 in the morning? Or is that a typo?
Yeah.
I mean, what's this telling us
Yeah.
here? I mean, this is the submitters' concerns, but I'm hearing that trucks are going in there at midnight at the moment, delivering whatever. Who's going to police that?
Oh, yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, so those items on the top of page 268, so they are the issues that were raised and that the team were concerned. So we'd identified those as issues, and that was what the subject of those further reports to DAF are. That the road impact, because that is a planning matter for council to address, that's where we have addressed that through the conditions you'll see in the recommendations. But those summary of issues were probably matters that weren't addressed in the initial applications, and we did request further information. So that's why this has been a 12-month process. So they were items that were raised by the team as I suppose matters that needed addressing, and that's where there was a number of significant further reports provided through the department.
Thank you, General Manager, for clarifying that. So if we work through that list of concerns raised, number one, do we now have information as to the increase or otherwise of truck movements? That's my first question. Second question is, are we satisfied that with increased flooding events predicted, and I think there's plenty of scientific evidence that says there's going to be increased flooding events across Australia, that we can be satisfied that the feedlot pens won't cause a problem with runoff and pollution if the water overflows out of the holding pond through those watercourses? Have we all been also satisfied that they're within the 2.5 to 4% gradient? And can we also be satisfied that there won't be trucks coming and going at all hours of the night, disrupting, creating a noise issue for our residents? So those four questions, if I could have those answered. Thank you, GMMA.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, I might have to refer to the guys for a bit more ticket, but essentially those issues have been addressed, and like with a flood event, I suppose there's no magic bullet or controls, but those are the matters that the department, and these are issues that are beyond council's legislative oversight. So these are the areas where the department would be, Department of Fisheries would be overseeing those. So we can only go on the report that's provided, that the department have provided an environmental authority. So that they're saying that they're comfortable with the reports and the information supplied. So that's what we're relying and basing the recommendation on, is that the administering authority for that EA is comfortable.
Sorry, General Manager, but I had specific questions. Number one was, do we have information regarding truck movements? Are they going to be increased or not? Question number two, do we still hold concerns that ongoing, recurring flood events in that part of the world are not going to cause problems for runoff and pollution? Number three, have they demonstrated that the gradient will be now within the range, less than 2.5 to 4%? And number four, can we be satisfied that there will be not truck movements there late at night disrupting local neighbours? 4 questions, thank you. If I could have those answered by our officers.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. With your last question there, the transport impacts are addressed on page 277. So just confirming in that advice, anticipated an average 1 truck per week per night might be required to unload any time after 6 p.m. and before 6 a.m. The trucks are travelling from North Queensland, and thus the cattle have been on a truck for approximately 16 hours. So that's some of the advice that we received from the applicant, that unless you guys want to add anything further to that. And that last paragraph in that transport impacts on page 277, the traffic associated with the transport of cattle will neither not change or reduce due to the elimination of the requirement to go to a feedlot off-site.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, with regards to the stormwater and the flooding, so the stormwater management of the site is designed to, I think it's a 1 in 10 year storm event. And that's the requirement of the national cattle guidelines. If there's a storm event greater than the 1 in 10, then we would expect that holding pond to overflow if it's that. So I guess we don't set those standards. It's national cattle guidelines that set the sizing and design of those holding ponds.
And the gradient?
The gradient, I'd have to double check on that one.
Thank you, officers. Okay, Councillor Potter, anything to close?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. We've got a list of recommendations and conditions set by the council staff, set by EPA, DAF and the National Cattle Guidelines. You know, some of us have actually spoken to both parties. This is a hard decision. No decision in this chambers is easy. Every decision we make affects someone, whether it's a positive or negative effect. But we still have to make those decisions, like it or not. And, you know, I do come back to page 268 of the report with regards to, it says the Environmental Authority reference number 2023-01 for the total of 900 cattle standard units dated in February this year, issued by the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries, including a copy of approval plan, is attached to this recommendation report, and the technical assessment taken by DAF overcomes the council's concerns and matters relating to the access and transport which are available, which are able to be conditioned by council. Based on this now complete assessment and approval by DAF, the extension of the existing facility is considered technically supportable. The proposed feedlot enhances the rural economy of the area and does not impact on any environmental overlays, waterways, regulated vegetation, etc. The subject is not within an area of flood or bushfire hazard, and the proposed feedlot is considered for use for the rural zone and will enhance the purpose of the rural zone code. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Councillor Shoemaker, Councillor Erkins, Jones, Potter and Henson. Those against, Councillor Duff and Otto. The motion has been carried, 5 votes to 2. Thank you all. Okay, 18.1, question on notice, Proston Lookout is at 286. Thank you, officers. 286. Okay, so Council, we had a question on notice there in relation to the Proston Lookout from Councillor Henson. We have the response provided, and the recommendation is that the response to the question regarding has any work on the P maps and vegetation maps been started for this site, and has any earthworks been done, raised by Councillor Henson, be received and noted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconder. Councillor Duff, thank you. Speakers, Councillor Henson, are you comfortable with the response? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I am comfortable with the response, and then since then there has been some work done up there, and no doubt we'll have some further conversations on this. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Shall we go to the vote? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, 18.2, staff matrix and benchmarking at 287. Following question on notice was received from Councillor Kirsty Shoemaker, and if we go to page 288, recommendation is that the response to the question regarding staff matrix and benchmarking raised by Councillor Kirsty Shoemaker be received and noted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker, seconder. Councillor Jones, thank you. Any speakers? Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It was just, I didn't quite understand the first statement. There is no way at this stage for South Burnett Regional Council to benchmark or compare other councils' turnover rates. However, a recent indication suggests that the results of turnover comparative data informally with other regions and southwest councils confirms our turnover to date is approximately 8% less in comparison. If that's the case, can I confirm what our actual turnover to date has been? Because the question on notice was, in the discussion we had, I wanted to understand what our turnover was this year in comparison to previous years. So, yeah, this report's sort of a lot of words that don't necessarily make sense.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So Rebecca's online. Just in relation to that data, I asked Beck the similar questions. Councils around us have been providing their information informally, so that's not publicly available. That's why that's written the way it is. It's just probably for a bit of clarity there. Beck is online. I think it's in the attachment. I thought, Beck, can you make a comment? What is their actual turnover rate?
Shoemaker. On page 289, there is an attachment that shows turnover statistics from March 2021, March 2022 and March 2023. Our current year to date in March 2023 is 16.49% turnover. The previous year is 16.12 and the year prior is 14.91%.
So, thank you, Beck. Sorry, I've gone electronic and I'm struggling with some of the attachments. I am going to get better though, save the trees. So 16.49% is our annual turnover. So in total, how many staff have, I'm just trying to understand. So there's 113. How many staff have we actually seen leave the organisation? I don't quite understand your table here. So you've got total head count for each department, and then you've got FTEs against the previous years. So do I read it as executive services, the total head count was 22 in March 22, and this year's 14. There's 12.65 FTEs against 21.43 FTEs. Does that show then that that team has not got, its full numbers of staffing? Like, I know we talk about this quite often, but so has it dropped by 6 positions or? Sorry, can you just explain? My question is staff per department. Can you please explain the comparisons and the information you've presented here?
Yeah, sure. So I'm really echoing if someone has got their mics on. Structure in the community/livability department happened last year, and executive services, some of the roles were pushed into livability, which explains that difference in the headcount essentially from last year to this year. We don't record on the actual number of staff that left for the FTE rate, councillor. We report on this 12 months previous total staff, excluding councillors, and we divide that by 2. So the average between the current and the 12-month previous, divided by the number of staff that do leave. I do have those figures, but essentially people report on a year to date as a percentage, not as a number.
Okay, and just in terms of those that have left staff, do they undertake, those who have left the organisation, do they undertake exit interviews? And if they do we report on what some of the key themes or reasons for them actually leaving the organisation are?
So I can answer that one. Yes, we do offer exit interviews. However, it is not mandatory. Some staff refuse to see us to give us an exit interview at times. And yes, we do keep the statistics of why staff are leaving.
Can that information be shared with councillors? I'd like to better understand what some of the key themes or reasons for that are, because there is a perception in the community that a number of good council staff are leaving the organisation, and I would like to better understand why. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to accept the report as it is, but I would like some further information or an opportunity for councillors to actually better understand this data, because I do feel when we're setting budgets and talking about the bigger picture, you know, culture and our people are our key priority when it comes to delivering on the key strategic priorities of council. And I am concerned. I understand, you know, we're tracking at 16.49%. When you actually start to do some of the sums as to what it costs to replace a staff member in an organisation, it is significant. This is a significant risk for our council, and I would like to better understand it. And I would like to better understand some of the perception that I've heard in the community around why people are leaving our organisation and what we as an organisation need to be doing to hold on to good quality staff, because at the end of the day, we can set the best strategies in the world, but if we don't have the people on the ground doing the work and turning up, then the jobs aren't done. And I want every family member, every person who works for council to go home feeling like they've contributed to our community, feeling like they're part of a valued team and enjoying the work they do. That's my dream. So the reason why I'm asking these questions is because I really want to better understand. We're laying out budgets, we're making big decisions about services, and I've had some interesting conversations in our community, and I would like to better understand how we as a council provide better conditions, better environment, attract quality staff to our council, and keep them here. Thank you.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor. So I've just made a couple of notes there, Councillor. If Council's happy, there are issues I'll raise with Mark on his return, and just see how Council can have a better conversation around some of those issues going forward. It might be one for Mark directly when he returns to work through.
Yes, perhaps we can have a briefing or something so we can ask some further questions about this.
Yeah, okay. So there have been some statements made here this morning by Councillor Shoemaker in relation to 16.49% being concerning figure. Maybe I wasn't listening carefully, but Manager, can you perhaps explain to me the math as to where that 16.49%, what we're saying publicly here is that our turnover is 16.49%. So how is that figure calculated? Because I'm a little bit confused when I look at the numbers of people here. Can you help just explain that again for me, please?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my turnover is calculated via our staffing number, the 12-month total number excluding councillors, and then I add what the current month of total staff excluding councillors is, and then we divide that, we get an average there. And then I use how many staff have left in that same period to get a figure.
Okay, so can you just run me through the numbers that you used in that calculation? Sorry, I just want to make sure that I'm clear on this. So you take the total number of staff. Sorry, yeah, you go.
All right, it's the previous 12 months. So you can't see the figures. So I'd use, for instance, April 2022 figures and March 2023 figures is how I would calculate. So it's the 12-month period. It's not the same month the year before. So for instance, if you want a number specifically of how many people left in the 12 months before March 2023, I can give you that number.
The number of people that have left in the last 12 months from April 22 to March 23 in that 12 months.
Yes. 56.
We've had 56 people leave the organisation in the last 12 months.
So can I just explain that the people that have left may be resignations, they could be retirement. We don't go through and pull out those that voluntarily resigned versus end of contract, trainees, for example, finishing up. And we have a lot of maximum term roles as well. So it's everyone who has left in that period.
Thank you. Yeah, that certainly is an alarming number, isn't it? 56 people have left in the last 12 months. So yeah, thank you for clarifying. That's much clearer for me now. Much appreciated. Thank you, Manager. Any further speakers?
Yeah,
Sorry. No, we'll stay with you. Thank you, Manager.
Yeah, just in comparison though, like I've written here, we are tracking better than most at the moment within our region or within our areas.
Thank you, Manager. Further speakers, Councillor Shoemaker, we'll stay with you.
Mr Mayor, can we just confirm, you said 56 for this year, so March 22 and March 21. Beck, do you have those numbers?
So it's March 23 was 56, so the April previously. Bear with me a second, I'm just going through my spreadsheet, sorry. March 2022, the previous 12 months was 54 staff.
And March 20.
And yeah, 48. Be very mindful that the average changes each month based on our numbers as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further
You're
speakers?
welcome.
No further speakers? Okay, so shall we go to the vote? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, where are we up to? Item 20. We have a recommendation there, Council, that Council considers the confidential reports listed below on a meeting closed to the public in accordance with Section 254J of the Local Government Regulation 2012, 20.1, sale of land for overdue rates and charges, 20.2, that's considered confidential under 254J-I of the Local Government Regulation, 20.2, consideration for omission on rates, that matter considered confidential under 254J-D of the Local Government Regulation, and 20.3, consideration for omission on rates, again considered to be confidential under Section 254J-D of the Local Government Regulation. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Jones. Thank you. Any speakers to the vote? Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. We'll now go out into closed. Thank you, Kimberly. To the open council meeting. The first matter is 20.1. Recommendation is that pursuant to Section 142 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, the South Burnett Regional Council resolves to sell the land described below in Schedule 1 for overdue rates and charges, and the council delegate to the CEO its power to take all further steps under Chapter 4, Part 12, Division 3 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to effect sale of the land, including, for the avoidance of doubt, the power to end sale procedures. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, seconded Councillor Erkins. Any speakers to the vote? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 20.2, Council. Recommendation is that Council declines approval of a general rate exemption for the Salvation Army Property Trust on property as stated. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, seconder. Councillor Erkins. Speakers to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. 20.3. Recommendation is that Council declines approval of a general rate exemption for the Salvation Army in relation to the property as stated, as it doesn't meet the intent of Council policy, as per the previous motion. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, seconder. Councillor Erkins. Speakers to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Council, just in, if we could, with the leave of the meeting, like to put forward a motion off the floor that item 10.6, South Burnett Regional Council Revenue Policy 2324, Statutory 005 be considered to be repealed and consideration given to the adoption of an amended policy at the May ordinary meeting of Council. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Potter, thank you. Any speakers? Okay. We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. That now concludes today's meeting. Call the meeting closed. Thank you for your attendance and participation.